Thank you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi guys, hello. I'm so glad you guys, oh, I didn't flip it off. Boop. Hello. Hi guys. My name is Eric Ginsberg. I am a master tutor at Solution Prep, where we do things like college admissions coaching and SAT and ACT prep. I want you guys to know that if you have questions tonight, we're going to definitely take them toward the end. We're going to have a big portion of just jot down any questions you have in rapid fire, and I'll go through it all. Also, I'll tell you guys, if you have questions beyond tonight and you realize, I should have asked that guy this thing, you can always shoot me an email, questions@solutionprep.com. If you have one of those pads, it's written down on the pad already, so you know how to get in touch with me. But tonight we're talking about negotiating with colleges and where else to save money off the cost of college. And I'm going to kind of let you guys in behind the veil a little bit about how college admissions and how financing on the college side of things works. And we were here last time in October. We talked about what you can do with financial aid applications and what you can do with assets and income and things like that to potentially increase. But at this point, show of hands, let me get an idea. Show of hands, who has a senior or is a senior, is or has a senior? Okay, all right. Show of hands, who is or has a junior? Oh, a good number of those too. Who is or has a 10th grader? A couple. Hi, guys. Anybody with freshmen? Anybody? Couple, younger kids. Okay. So, some of you guys who are seniors, who have seniors, show of hands, who has been accepted? Who has a student who's been accepted to at least one college already? All right. Who is still waiting on one or more college acceptance letters? All right. Let me ask you guys, who here has received an acceptance letter but has not yet from that college received an award letter having to do with financial aid? Who has received at least one award letter? All right, so we'll talk about what's in those things and how those things work. Before I get into the dollars and cents, tonight's about negotiating with colleges. And yes, we want to negotiate money, but we also want to negotiate, before I get to that, our number one goal with overarching everything we're doing tonight is about saving you money, of course. That's what we want. We want to save you guys money. And show of hands, who wants to save money? Yeah, everybody, all right. And even if you can afford college, even if you have all the money set aside, wouldn't you rather not spend it all? Wouldn't you rather have some money left over for maybe helping your kids with grad school, med school, law school, maybe putting towards your retirement, maybe helping with your younger kids going to college? Don't spend it all on the oldest kid and have to put the younger one in therapy because there's no money left for their college. Well, you see, you were a happy surprise for us. We spent it all. And a big part of saving money off the cost of college is also minimizing student debt. Now, I'll tell you guys, I did this presentation last night, and it took too long. So tonight, I'm going to make up for that by talking faster. But before we can get into the money side, we got to talk about getting in to college. So show of hands, who is still, we said already, waiting on one or more acceptance letter, right? Anybody here been deferred by a college from the early round? Anybody here been waitlisted yet? Very little of that yet. There's a time for that. It's not that time yet. All right. So how do we get to yes? If you're maybe deferred or waitlisted, deferred means that you applied in the early rounds of between October 15th, November 15th, somewhere in that window. And they said, look, we were only taking a certain number of students in the early rounds, and other students, there was just not enough space for them now. Gold Star will consider you for later. Right? So some colleges might, let's say for easy numbers, only be willing to take 1,000 students for their early round. This is hypothetical, you understand. And they might have said, well, already from this 1,000, we want 200 to be legacy students whose parents, siblings, grandparents went here. We want 200 of these to be spots for the children of our employees, our professors, our whatever. We want 200 of these to be for the athletic scholarships for the coaches to fill their team. We want 200 of these to be first-generation college students who will be the first ones in their families to go to college. We want 200 of these to be for economically underserved students. And if you didn't fall into one of those 5 categories, you didn't fit into that first 1,000 students they're taking. You know what I mean? And so getting deferred doesn't mean you're not going to get in. It means that you didn't fit what they were looking for right then for that spot. And they're going to continue thinking about you. So how do we get from deferred earlier to yes later, and maybe you're just waiting to hear. Maybe they just have not made their decision yet. So there are a couple things you can do. First of all, you can retest. Now, for a college that is test optional and you went test optional, meaning you did not send scores, it's not going to do anything for you. But for colleges that require scores, like the public schools in Florida, public schools in Georgia, the federal academies for things like West Point and Annapolis and Merchant Marines and Air Force, those colleges require test scores. MIT requires test scores. And maybe you didn't go test optional, even though you had the option. You said, you know what, I'm going to send my scores, and then you got deferred. Well, you can test again and send along better scores, and then maybe increase your chances of getting in. The next ACT is going to be February 11th. Registration for that's probably closed at this point, but there might be a wait list. And the next SAT is March 11th. That's a thing worth considering if you submitted scores, either because they required it or because you thought it was going to be a good idea. You can update them with your grades. And of course, you guys just finished the middle of the school year, right? Midterms are over, or finals. What do you guys have in the middle of the year here? Midterms. Some schools have like first half of the year classes, and then they're over and they have new classes. Okay. So you guys had exams, and guidance is hard at work on sending all the updated mid-year transcripts. And if your GPA has increased, that may increase your chance of being admitted in the regular round. You can go visit the college again. Take another look. Let them know that you were there by signing up for an official visit. That way, they know that you're still paying attention, you're still actively considering the college, and just overall continue to express interest. Demonstrated interest is one thing that some colleges look at when deciding who to accept, and we're going to discuss why today. Some colleges, if you get deferred, if you get waitlisted, make you go to their website and accept a spot on the wait list, or request to continue being considered. And so if your students haven't done that, and that's an option on your portal, on that college's website, look into that and do that. Sometimes just click at the button that says yes. You can call students. Students should make these phone calls. Students can call the college and say, hi, here's who I am. I'm from Princeton High School, and I've been deferred, and I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to continue considering me, because they could have rejected you. You understand that, right? So continuing to consider me for the fall of 24. Would you accept, fall of 23 now, would you accept a letter of continued interest? And some schools say, no. Okay. And if they say no, then you say, okay, would you accept an additional letter of recommendation? And some schools say no. But if they say yes to either one of those things, then you get to do those things and follow up and continue expressing your interest, which can increase your overall chance of getting in. And we're going to discuss why. Now, what if you were accepted, but you were accepted for the summer? You got to start earlier. Or you were accepted for the spring, you got to wait. Or, I'll put it onto this list, it's not on the screen, but what if you were accepted not to the campus you wanted? I had a conversation today with a mom whose daughter was accepted to Northeastern yesterday, but this girl's in love with Boston. They said you can go to the Oakland campus in California. That's not where she wants to go to college. So what do we do if we get in, but not the way we want? What if they accept you for the college, but not for your program? Right? That happens sometimes for more competitive programs. You can come and we'll see if you pull your grades up, maybe you got to wait a year, whatever. So there are a couple things we can do. First, let's talk about why a college might accept you for the summer and why they might accept you for the spring. They might accept you for the summer because maybe you're on the cusp. And maybe they feel like they want to give you a chance to get on campus and get your feet wet before everybody's here. Take a few classes so it's not a full class load. Meet some people, learn your way around. That way when August comes and campus fills up, then you already have your sea legs and you're more likely to succeed and make that successful transition. And if they're offering you that, maybe that's the right move for you. Consider it. If you're accepted for the spring, why might a college accept you for the spring? So some students start at the college first semester and they don't make it to second semester. They flunk out, they drop out, they transfer out. It's not for them. They get homesick, whatever. And so what they're trying to do with accepting students for the spring, University of Miami does that, University of Maryland does that. I hear it every year. I get a couple of those. I was accepted, but I wait till the spring. What they're trying to do is they're trying to pre-fill some of the spots they know they're going to lose. Some kids will start and not come back, and then you will come and take their place, they think, they hope, maybe. And Some misunderstandings about being accepted for the spring is that A, you can't go to college in the fall. You absolutely can go to college in the fall. You got options. You can go to your local county college. Like, here it's Mercer County, right? You guys can go to Mercer County Community College, MCCC. Taught a class there once. It was fun. Still be making progress towards your degree, and then transfer those credits in the spring, and it's fine. It's fine. You're going to look back on this and laugh. Or, believe it or not, you can actually go to the college that said you got to wait till the spring. You can go there in the fall, but you're going to be what's called a non-matriculated student, which means you're just a person who's enrolling in some classes that are not necessarily toward a degree specifically, and you're going to get last pick on available classes. You might have some evening classes. You're not going to get to dorm first semester. You got to find some place to live or commute. Right? But you can still go, and you can still get your student ID, and you can still join clubs and go to the football games, and then in the second semester you move into the dorms and get morning classes. And it's not the end of the world is my point. But what if you don't want that? What if that's just not your plan for college? Your plan is, I'm going to start at my top choice college in the fall, or I'm not going to pick that college. So first of all, you can negotiate. And we're going to talk today about obviously negotiating with colleges. And when I get to that point, I'm going to be real focused on the money because that's where the conversation is going to go. But I don't want you guys to lose sight of the fact that you can negotiate for anything. Well, you can negotiate for one thing, and you got to pick your battles. Because you can't negotiate for money and then say, okay, now may I also negotiate this, and now may I also negotiate that. You got to pick what's most important to you. So this mom I spoke to earlier today, who just got accepted to Northeastern yesterday, and said, I want to call them today. I said, no, we're not going to call them today. We're going to wait for the award letter to show up. Because if the award letter isn't giving you enough money, then you can choose. Are you going to negotiate for award, or are you going to negotiate that freshman year should be in Boston, not Oakland? Then you choose. But if the award letter is good, then you negotiate for Boston. Because if you step in right now and say, I want Boston or nothing, and they say, okay, you can have Boston, give me a deposit, then your award letter is not going to be what you want, and you're not going to have room to negotiate then. Make sense? So when we get up to the negotiating, I want you to know that stuff like getting into your program, getting onto your campus, getting into the right semester that you want to start, getting into the honors college, these are all things that can be negotiated, and I will teach you how. But you got to pick your battles and choose what's most important to you and what are you going to actually negotiate for. And hey, listen, maybe they give you some sweetheart deal. They give you everything you wanted. Who knows? All right, then you spent an evening hanging out with me just for yucks. All right, so another thing you can do is you can accept yes. You can take yes for an answer. If your top choice college has accepted you, but you got to, start by doing a semester abroad, or you have to start by coming a little early, or you have to start by earning your way into the fancy program. You get to go to the college you wanted to go to. Isn't that what you wanted, right? So consider taking yes for an answer, is all I'm saying. All right. So let me give you guys some key terms for today and explain to you why these terms are important. This is me lifting back the veil of how college admissions works and giving you guys some information for stuff you should be looking at for each college on your list. The first is yield. The yield is the percent of accepted students who choose to go there. Every college knows that you're applying to more than one, and every college knows you're only going to pick one. So they know they're not going to get 100% of the students they accept. They know that. They know you have other offers. About 15 years ago, the average number of colleges a student applied to was about 5 on average. Now that number is 8. That's a 60% increase. That is huge, right? In part because people are fishing for more scholarships. So that means yields go down because the students they've accepted have applied to more and more schools, or there's more competition. So a college is trying to predict, right, their yield. So based on historical data and current market trends, they want to know about what percent of the students they accept will go there. For easy numbers, let's just imagine a college wants 5,000 freshmen, and let's imagine they expect a 50% yield. That means they have to accept 10,000 students to get the 5,000 they need to fill their freshman class. Now, all of this said, they're not always right. In fact, they're usually wrong, and the question is which direction and by how much. Because if a college is like 49% or 51% when they expected 50, close enough. But let's say We're coming up on May 1st. May 1st is National Decision Day. You can commit sooner, and trust me, they want you to. But you can hold out until May 1st to make that deposit and make that commitment. But if a college is coming up on May 1st and they're at a 45% yield, they're missing 500 kids if they expected a 50% yield. And now they're ready to make a deal. Understand? Other colleges, maybe they hit their yield early. They hit it in March. And now we're coming up on May 1st, they're at 55%. So there are a couple things you should know. First of all, when they send you an offer, your offer is good until May 1st. If they made a mistake and they over-yielded, that's their problem. They don't say the first 5,000 in the door, get it, everybody else is left out in the cold. Although if they don't guarantee housing, you may be left out in the cold for that. So always find out, does the college guarantee housing for freshmen? They will threaten you and say, you might not get the good ones, and that's fine, and we'll talk about why. But as long as they guarantee housing, you have nothing to risk by waiting a little bit until you get to, your deposit. Don't wait till May 2nd. So unfortunately, when we negotiate, this is something that we do not know. We are operating from a point of ignorance. We don't know if they've made their yield and if they haven't. Like I said, if they have not made their yield, if they're nervous they won't make their yield, they're itching to make a deal. If they're over their yield, they're like they don't need you. There's no reason for them to offer you anything. You understand? You have no leverage, but you don't know that. Some colleges over yield. Where are they going to house all these students? This year at Fairfield, most freshmen are living 3 to a room that's made for 2. It's called a forced trip. They're forcing students to triple up in a dorm because they have too many kids. They got to house these kids. They guaranteed the housing, right? It's like county lockup in there where like one is sleeping under the bottom bunk. So I've heard. Yield. Next term we'll talk about, guys, is, and by the way, some colleges do not put their yield up on their website, but if you look at last year, if you look at the number of students who enrolled as freshmen, divided by the number of students who were accepted, you will get their yield. And a typical yield for your average school is about 15 to 20%. That's typical. For your fancy schools like Princeton and Harvard and Duke, you're going to see much higher yields because kids who got in like, whoa, I definitely want to go there. Higher yields. If you make, and you should, make a spreadsheet of all the schools your students are getting accepted to and add a column for yield, it's one of the ways we'll talk about to compare apples to apples from one school to the next. Because if too few students, if the yield is too low, too few choose to go there, that should be a red flag to you. What didn't you know about that school that other students seem to know, right? Next term is retention. Every college has a retention rate, which you can find on their website. And that's what percent of freshmen return as sophomores. Put it in your spreadsheet. And again, a college that has a low retention rate, that is a red flag for you. MIT has a 99% retention rate. That tells us students are happy. It tells us students are given the tools they need to succeed, so they come back. Harvard has an 84% retention rate. Whoa, 84 is not terrible, but a lot of schools are in the 90s. So Harvard, some of these kids have to sink or swim, right? You got into Harvard, you better figure it out, kid. So keep those things in mind. And we're going to talk about the negotiating, but to understand it, we have to know if they think you're going to retain, they're more likely to compete for you. If they think you're going to yield, if all it's going to take is a little bit of money to get you over the finish line, they might negotiate with you. When it comes to retention, why would they think you're going to retain? Well, maybe you have great grades in academically rigorous classes that conveys to that college that you are likely to be able to cut it at their school. It's not going to be too tough. You're not going to flunk out, right? Maybe you're actively involved in clubs and other extracurricular activities in school that tells them you're going to be involved on campus, because students who get involved make friends. And when they make friends, they make community and they come back. Students who go to class, go to their dorm, do their homework, power down for the night, and then wake up in the morning and do it again, they don't make friends, they get homesick, there's no reason for me to be here, I could be doing this stuff closer to home, why am I paying all this money? Also, leadership is a reason why you might get involved and you might continue certain organizations, take over those reins when the people in charge graduate and move on, which means you're going to contribute towards somebody else retaining someday, right? You're going to be a good friend. You're going to be a good member of their student body who's going to encourage other people to want to retain because they want to hang out with you and do the activities that you're leading or stuff. Another term is graduation. Graduation rate. Every college has a 4-year, a 6-year, and an 8-year graduation rate. Parents, show of hands, who would like their student to spend 8 years getting their bachelor's degree? Oh, no hands. How interesting. So you want to make sure you get your hands on that 4-year graduation rate, and sometimes they put up the 6 and the 8, and you gotta really call sometimes and say, can I get the 4-year, please? Another good place to find this information is something called, and you want to jot this down, the Common Data Set. Common Data Set. Every college has a Common Data Set. It is required by federal law. So if you Google the name of the college and Common Data Set, you will see a page where there's a link to last year's information. This year, they're still working it out. You'll see last year's information. And sometimes you'll see like the last decades, year. You want the most recent year you can get. And it's ugly. It's kind of like a tax document. And in this case, the Control F, or on an Apple computer, Command F is your friend. Because you can hit that button and then type in retention. It'll zip you right down to where in the document that information is. All right? It's helpful information and a good place to find it for any single college. So colleges want to have a high graduation rate. So if they think you're going to contribute toward a high graduation rate, you're going to graduate on time, they're more likely to accept you. Now, some schools like Drexel, like Northeastern, we mentioned before, they require students to do a co-op. So it's very normal for students at those schools to take 5 years to graduate. Not because they're slacking, but because 1 year they took off to blah, 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 blah. All right, Stevens is very big on co-ops for certain majors. Don't always discount the 4-year thing if that's the case. Apples to apples. Next term is interquartile range. So the interquartile range is the middle 50%, and you can find that for SAT and ACT scores on most college websites and definitely in the Common Data Set. So if you've submitted scores and you are above their interquartile range, you're going to pull up their average, and that's going to make them look good. Because parents, let's be honest, when we look at a college and we see stats, including their SAT and their ACT scores, we see high scores. What happens in our lizard brains? We go, oh, good school, right? And what happens when we think it's a good school? We're more likely to apply, and we're more willing to pay a higher price for it. We think we're getting something better, right? We'll pay more money for it, yes? That's how the human psyche works. And so that's why many colleges right now, despite the fact that the pandemic canceling tests is over, they're still saying, well, maybe we'll be test optional a little bit longer. Because what happens to an average when you take out the low numbers? It goes up. And what happens to our brain when we see those high numbers? We pay more, right? So understand that. If you're above their range, you make them look good, and they might be more willing to compete for you. You can also look at their average GPAs. And again, if you're like well above that, you're going to bring that average up. You make them look good. And the last term is COA, and that's the most important term. We talked about it back in October at Financial Aid Night. That is the cost of attendance. Every college has an official, federally recognized cost of attendance. And we discussed back on Financial Aid Night, for those of you who are here, you know this, that certain loans, like the NJ Class loan, that New Jersey parents can borrow for their kids to go anywhere in the country, and the Direct Plus loan, which is the federal loan that anybody can borrow to put their kids through college. You can borrow those up to the federal cost of attendance. Let's talk about cost of attendance. What's your cost of attendance going to be? Well, it depends on which college you choose. That's a range. So we have in-state rates for Montclair, Rutgers, TCNJ, NJIT, all in the 30s. We've got, the lines aren't showing up so well. I promise they're on the slide. But for UNC and UMD, we're in the 50s. For UCLA and UT Austin, we're in the 60s. Miami's in the high 70s. BU, NYU into the 80s. Guys, we're only a few years away from the first college hitting $90,000 COA. I have a student, he's a senior right now, and he was looking at University of Chicago, which some years is the most expensive college in the country, but they have great financial aid for students who have need, and they kind of balance that by jacking the price up for people who can't afford it, kind of balance it all out. And they were looking at about $82,000 a year that year. Yeah, 82, 83. And he multiplied it by 4. So 82 times 4 is 328. Okay. I said, well, the cost of college goes up at about 3 to 5% a year. So understand that whatever price you see, it's not going to be that price. It's not going to be that price forever. Also make sure that when you're looking at the cost of attendance, you're going with the same year. Some schools have already published next year's COA, and some schools are still working off this year's COA. And you can't compare next year's cost at this school to this year's cost at some other school. So either get this year's cost, so they're all on this year, so either get next year, so they're all on next year, or go back to this year, so they're all this year. But if you want to get an idea of about what a college will cost next year, you can multiply it by 1.04. It's an estimate, 3 to 5%. That's a 4% increase, right? So I did that experiment with the student. We did the 82,000 times 1.04 for next year, times 1.04 for the year after that, times, added them up, $350,000. That's $22,000 more than he was thinking, right? And $22,000, I mean, not that 328 is not a lot, but another 22 is not nothing. And something happens in our brain. When we look at prices, we tend to compare the savings to the overall price. Like if you're going to go buy a car, right, and the car costs $30,000 versus it costs $32,000. You're like, okay, 32, it's about the same. Oh, is it? Give me $2,000. Everybody right now, quick, give me $2,000. Oh, no, you don't want to do that? Right, because compared to giving me nothing, 2,000 is a lot. Compared to paying 30, 2,000 is not a lot. So when we're looking at the cost of college and we're like, well, gee, this is only going to save me 1,000. That's only going to save me 2,000. This is only going to save me 5,000. Yeah, times 4 plus interest if you're borrowing, it adds up. Every dollar adds up. So definitely make sure that you're not thinking about those dollars in terms of compared to the cost. Compare it to what else could you do with that money? Could you take a vacation? Could you put it into retirement? Could you, I don't know, stop buying the store brand canned peas or something? I don't know. Stop having to go out of your way to go to the cheap gas station. Suddenly you got that mobile Exxon money. Yeah. Not stopping at the Speedway, the Delta, the Liberty. So, the cost of college can vary wildly, and what's in your COA can be a little deceiving. There was a new law signed into effect in December of 2020 called the Future Act, which changed a lot about how financial aid is going to work. And some of those things we discussed in October, some of those things we're going to discuss hopefully next October if I can come back, I'd love to, and get through exactly what's changing. But one of those changes that's really good is that colleges will legally have to put on their website the official COA, because some colleges only put the direct costs that you pay to them. And some colleges only put the tuition and the fees. Tuition, obviously, we know. You got to pay for the classes, right? And for most colleges, tuition for 12 to 18 credits full-time is a flat rate. Okay? Some schools charge you by the credit, but most schools, full-time is full-time. So if you take 18 credits, you're getting more bang for your buck than if you're taking 12 credits. Because it takes, for most colleges, 120 to 135 credits, depending on your major, to graduate college. And if you can graduate a little faster by piling on some credits, that can save you money. I wouldn't suggest doing that freshman year. Get your sea legs first. Get used to this whole being responsible for yourself thing first. But eventually you can start piling on the credits and it costs you nothing extra. The fees, guys, 3 things in life are certain: death, taxes, and college fees. There are fees for everything. There's an activities fee, there's a lab fee, there's a health fee, there's a fee, there's a fee FIFO FUM fee. There's fees for everything. But then there's also room. That's the dorms. There's also board. That's the food. And some colleges will only put on their website tuition and fees. What about room and board? I had a mom who, she went and toured Fordham and came back and said, Eric, they're charging $49,990. Who do they think they're kidding? I said, oh, honey, that's just the tuition. There's way more than that. It's actually going to be about $80,000. It's way more, 75 that year. It's way more. All right, these are the direct costs you pay straight to the school. And some schools just put all of this, but they're leaving out the indirect expenses, the indirect costs of going to college, which is part of the official federally recognized COA, and you should make sure that when you're organizing your spreadsheet, you make a column for COA. What is the official federal amount? Because there's going to be books, and the College Board, the folks who make the SATs, estimate American students spend upwards of $2,000 a year on textbooks. Your kids have never paid $300 for a book, but someone's going to ask them to. They're going to try to get that from you, and you don't have to spend that kind of money. We'll talk about how you can get it for less. There's going to be other supplies. You need a laptop, you need graph paper, you need oak tab, you need paper clips, you need school supplies, right, to do your work, to get things done. You need travel expenses. Now, obviously, if you're traveling to Princeton University, it's very inexpensive, right? But if you're traveling to UCLA, it's very expensive. Meanwhile, some student from LA coming to Princeton, for them, it's much more expensive than it is for you. So the fact that these numbers may vary by student, understand the COA is not an exact amount you will pay. And we're going to talk tonight about how to save money, how to make smart choices to reduce a lot of these categories, to be below the official federal COA. There's also personal expenses. You need walking around money, you need toiletries, you need to go to the movies, you need to go axe throwing with your friends or whatever, expenses. And of course, guys, personal expenses are more if your kid goes to NYU and they're living in Manhattan than if your kid goes to Bucknell and they're living in the middle of nowhere, right? These things impact the cost of attendance, which means that inflation that we're dealing with right now with eggs and, gas and all that stuff, that plays into this. So when I say 3 to 5%, that's an average, that's an estimate. But inflation may be driving up some of these things more than that in a given year. And then, of course, there's loan interest, which, if you're not taking out loans, you have $0. If you're taking out a lot of loans, you have loan interest, we'll talk about today. And they try to average all these numbers, come up with how much will you actually spend on average. And we want to get you below the average. It's the one time in your life you want to be below average. All right, so let's talk about what's in your award letter. We said some of you guys have award letters already. What's in those award letters? So award letters will contain maybe, possibly, merit scholarships. They may have names on them, like the Dean's Award, the Susan K. Brown Fellow Award, whatever the heck they call these things. These are merit scholarships given to you by the school out of their own endowment or out of certain funds specifically for this. You might see some need-based grants. Now, some of those might be the Pell Grant we talked about in October, might be the FSEOG, the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Some of these might be the TAG, Tuition Aid Grant, if your student's going to go to college in New Jersey. And so these things, some of these things, if they're from the government, specifically the Pell Grant and the TAG, that's not a favor the college is doing for you. That's based on your FAFSA. That's coming from the government. The college is just delivering the news. They're just the messenger. But the FSEOG we talked about back in October, although it's federal dollars, the college decides who gets how much. So that will vary school by school. And also, there may be institutional need-based grants. Now, some colleges are committed to meeting 100% of students' need, like Princeton. Some schools are committed to meeting 100% of students' need without loans. Ooh, I got goosebumps. Not just because it's cold in here. But Amherst will meet 100% of need without any loans. Some schools, like Bryn Mawr, will meet 100% of need without loans if you qualify based on income and assets. Then no loans, but if you're above that, then your need may be met with a combination of free money, which is called gift aid. Jot that term down, gift aid. Combination of free money, gift aid, and loan money. You may see on there work study, which is a job your student can work during college. When you filled out the FAFSA, one of the questions was, do you want to be considered for work study? And hopefully you said yes. And if they considered you, there may be some amount of money there where your student can work. And we'll talk about work study today. And you may also see on there some loans. If you filled out the FAFSA, you will be offered $5,500 in direct student loans. And you can choose to take it or not. You may also see other loans, like the parent loan, the Direct Plus, often called the Parent Plus loan. You may see private loans from like Discover and Wells Fargo and Bank of America and whomever. You're going to see these things. Now, some colleges are good eggs. And they say, look, here's your merit scholarships. Here's your need-based grants. So your total gift aid is this much. Great. Oh, and then also here's some work study you could do. Oh, and here also are some loans if you want them. Okay, thank you. Other colleges try to pull a fast one on 17-year-olds who are not financially savvy, and they say, merit scholarships, need-based grants, work study, loans, total award. Whoa, 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 go back, go back. A loan is not an award. A loan is a loan. You owe it back with interest. That's not doing you a big favor. And work study isn't an award either. It's a job that you work and you get paid. Parents, let me ask you a question. You work jobs. When you get your paycheck, do you feel like you've received an award? Obviously not, right? So in fact, these things are so misleading that in November, one of the congresswomen from North Carolina proposed making a law about how colleges have to present their award letters, because these things are almost criminally misleading to young people who are not financially savvy. So we're going to talk about these pieces, but parents, it is your responsibility to look over these things with your students, to make sure they understand these pieces, what's free, what's not free, what are they signing, what are they committing to. This is important stuff. This is lifelong stuff. I have a mom of a couple of my students over the years I've worked with, and she has 2 master's degrees. She went and she got a bachelor's, then she got a master's degree, and then she was really interested in something, so she got another master's degree, and she's like, she's 40-something years old, and she's like, Daddy, why did you let me take out all these loans? And he's like, oh, you wanted another master's degree. What am I going to say? No? Yeah, sometimes. He just let her sign all that stuff. It's like, yeah, go ahead. She didn't know. She never left academia. She went from school to school to school. So let's talk about loans first. And I'm not going to get into every kind of loan because today I want to focus specifically on the student side. So today we're talking about the direct loan, often called the Stafford loan, or the direct Stafford loan, or it's a student loan. That's the $5,500 that you will definitely be offered for freshman year if you fill out the FAFSA. And we talked about some of this stuff at Financial Aid. I'm going to get deeper into the weeds on this one specifically, though. So it's available in 2 flavors, subsidized and unsubsidized. The difference is that a subsidized loan while you're in college, and for 6 months thereafter, it is free. There's no interest due, there's no payment due, there's no money accruing except for what you've borrowed. For the unsubsidized loan, it means that during college and for 6 months thereafter, students are responsible for making interest-only payments on their loan, just the interest. And this year, it's 4.99%. And it ebbs and flows year by year. They said it May or June, and it's tied to the 10-year T-note. Hey guys, did you hear that they raised rates again today, another quarter point? Yeah, these things are going up. 2 years ago, this was 2.75%. Now it's almost double. Right? Because it's set to the 10-year T-note. Now, when they give you the information, they try to trick 17, 18-year-olds who don't understand. And they say, oh, actually, what you do is you defer the loan, you defer the interest, and then we'll just put it on what you owe us, and you don't pay anything right now. You just focus on going to school. If you're putting the interest on top of the loan and each month your interest is being calculated, your interest is compounding. And then you wind up owing interest on the interest on the interest, growth on growth, right? And we don't want that. So we have to make sure our students understand that the default setting is pay your interest. Now, nothing says you can't pay the interest for them, but this is their loan, only they can take it out. You don't have to co-sign, they don't need a credit score, but only they can take it out. There is a low 1.057% fee, and the fee is packed in, which means if you borrow $1,000, they're going to keep $10.57 for the fee. They're going to disperse the other $989.43 toward the college. You're going to owe the whole $1,000 plus interest. That's how the fee works. So Freshman year, you will be offered $5,500 based on need as determined by your FAFSA. Up to $3,500 of those dollars may be subsidized. And the difference between the total $55,000 you will be offered and whatever amount is subsidized, the difference is unsubsidized. And you can choose to take out only the subsidized portion, or all of it, or none of it. That's up to you. But it's always broken apart by term. So for a college that has a semester system, 2 semesters, fall and spring, you're going to get $2,750 the first semester, $2,750 the second semester. And if you get a combination of subsidized and unsubsidized, they'll also be evenly distributed between the semesters. The same is true for anything in your award letter: grants, scholarships, work study, always by term. And the reason is they don't want you putting all of the free money and all of the cheap loan money into your first semester, and now you have no money left over to go to college in the second semester and you have to drop out. They don't want you to do that. So they will distribute it equally. That way, whatever you're figuring out is a whole year plan. Now, the next year it goes up to another $1,000, and the next year another $1,000, where it shall stay, all combined for a total of 9 semesters. They'll give you an extra if you need one. All right, so the max you can borrow is $31,000 up to $23,000, which may be subsidized based on need. Now, that is specifically for dependent students. Independent students can borrow more, but your students are not independent. They're dependent. Some parents say, well, what do I have to get my kid to be independent? You don't want to do that. My mom had to do that. Let me tell you guys a story. My mom grew up at a time when her parents thought college was for boys, not for girls. They expected her to get a job at a bank or as a secretary and, give the money to the family to help save for her brothers to go to college, her 2 younger brothers. My mother wanted to go to college. She was in the top 5% of her high school class. My grandmother wanted to put her into what was then the secretarial track of high school. My mom got a guidance counselor to put her in the college track. But when it came time to apply to college and fill out the FAFSA, my grandparents wouldn't fill out the FAFSA. My grandmother said, it's nobody's business how much money we make. My grandmother was not well liked. She received a graveside roast from all 3 of her children. FYI. It was awkward for all of us. But my mother, if she wanted to go to college, she had to fill out the FAFSA without her parents. She had to be an independent student, which if you're married, if you're in the armed services, you're independent. If you're over 25 and live separately from your parents, you're independent. My mother was not those things. She was 17 years old. Her birthday is in October. She was one of the younger ones in her grade. 17 years old. My mother had to run away from home and cut away all contact with her entire family so that she could fill out her own FAFSA as an independent student. It's not the A plan. She didn't talk to my grandparents for 15 years, something like that. It's after I was born. So yeah, you're going to be dependent students, and this is the max you're going to get. Don't start barking up trees of, what if I'm independent? You're not. You get 10 to 20 years to pay this back. If you borrow less than, I think they just changed it to 12,000, or is it 11? Google it. If you borrow under that, all in all, and you make your payments for 10 years, 120 on-time payments, any money you still owe is forgiven. If you borrowed more than that, then any money you still owe after 20 years of on-time payments, that's 240 payments, is forgiven. Officially, but yes, but also no. So the rule is what I explained, and based on the current estimates, over 1 million borrowers should qualify for full forgiveness after 20 years, but so far fewer than 100. Not 100,000. Fewer than 100 people have gotten this forgiven after 20 years. It's a broken system. Don't count on it. You can get an income-based repayment plan where now you only have to pay back 5% of your income after living allowances. They increase the living allowance, and that makes it much more affordable for a lot of families. But, and this is important, it's possible that your income-based repayment may be less than the interest for that month. Now, what used to happen was if your interest was 100 and your income-based repayment was 50, you paid your 50, the other 50 got added to what you owe, and it compounded. That changed January 1st, just now, a month ago today. That now, if you pay your income-based repayment and it's less than the interest, the remainder of the interest for that month is forgiven. So your loan debt, your total debt, does not continue to climb. You only ever owe your principal and whatever you deferred when you were in college. Then it can compound. When you're making payments, it's not going to compound. Whew, what a real game changer, because there were people who borrowed 30 and then paid for 10 years and then owed 50. Right? That's a nightmare, and that was a nightmare for real people. It really happened over and over again. My point about that is you want to make sure your students are always making progress on their loans. Once they're out of college, 6 months later, interest and principal are due. Whatever payment they're making, even if the government would accept less, if they only pay their interest, they could be paying it for 10, 20 years or forever and never get out of debt. But if you're making progress on your loan, you're paying down the principal. It's extremely important. Help your students understand that. There's no prepayment penalty. Parents, if you can afford to help pay this stuff off faster, students, if you can pay it off faster, pay it off. My son just graduated college. When my son was in 11th grade, he was very excited about a particular school that was very expensive and was not good at giving aid. Not this school, but I'll tell you, Georgia Tech is very clear. They're committed to meeting 50% of your need. After that, it's up to you to figure out how to finance this education, is what the Dean of Admissions said. Right? That's what it is for them. So at this school my son was excited about, there was, a lot of debt, higher than the average debt by a lot for those graduates. And so I'm trying to explain this to him and, show him comparison. George, here's the national, here's what this school is like. And my son, my little 16-year-old idiot, whom I love, said, well, yeah, but like with the degree I get, then my starting salary would be this much and I can just pay that all off in the first year. You can laugh, it's okay, it's funny. He doesn't understand how taxes work, how living expenses work, how anything works really. He's getting better now, he's 23, he's making it work. But you gotta make sure that you pay this off as fast as you can. Now, what if you don't need it? We talked a lot at Financial Aid about 5 reasons why families who don't need loans may still want to take out loans. Today I'm talking about 2 of those reasons. One is right now, your students, they don't have bad credit, they have no credit. And they have no history of borrowing and then paying off that debt. And when they graduate college, they may want to get an apartment, get utilities turned on, maybe buy a car, maybe someday buy a house and get a small business loan, all things you need a credit score for, right? And so if you let them take out, doesn't have to be the whole thing, just a little bit of it, maybe $500 a semester, right? $4,000 over the course of 4 years, not the end of the world. Where they have a history of borrowing and making their on-time payments, you're helping set them up with a track record of a certain number of accounts, of a certain number of years, of on-time payments, and that will help prepare them for these adult milestones you want to help them reach. So consider that. Another reason is, and I say this unironically because I know that today this is not the case, but you can potentially profit on these loans. Like 4 or 5 months ago, the I-bond was at like 9%. Not now. But if you can get an I-bond at 9% and then borrow at 5%, you borrow and then you buy the I-bonds and then you pay it off with cheaper dollars, you made a profit on these loans. Consult a financial planning professional. Investment carries a risk of loss. So, these are things worth considering. I should also mention that, students have a certain responsibility. This is their education, and they need to have some skin in the game. And parents, one negotiation you may want to have with your student is that if they want the more expensive school, they're taking out loans for it. If they are willing to take the less expensive school, maybe you can cover all of it or, a higher percent of it. That's a conversation worth having, but make sure you don't put them into a corner because, again, they don't understand. I had a student who was, she's just like, I'll just borrow it all. It doesn't matter. I don't need to hear from you, Mom. I'm just going to go where I want to go. What does it matter to you? I'm paying the bill anyway. These are things that 17-year-olds say when they're, emotional. So you don't want to put them in that position where they start making bad emotional decisions. And you say, fine, do that. What do I care? It's your money anyway. You should both be in therapy. My point is, there's a lot of reasons they got loans, even if you don't need them, yada, yada, yada. Now, all that we talked about at Financial Aid Night, but I'm bringing you guys back up to speed because now we're going to get deeper into the weeds. Let's look at what a loan is really like. Let's look at when you borrow. Let's say, I'm picking a hypothetical. I got to pick something because there's so many variables. Here's the hypothetical. You borrow the full 55, 65, 75, 75. You don't qualify for subsidized loans. You get all unsubsidized. That's my hypothetical. Okay, this is like worst case scenario, but I'm using this year's rate, 4.99%. Could go up next year, could go down next year, I don't know. But every year you borrow, you're locked in at that year's rate. You can refinance someday, but this is what it is. So, first semester, your interest only is $11.44 a month. That's not bad, right? What's that, like a trip to Taco Bell? Second semester, you borrow the other half. Now you're paying $22.87 a month. That's like, Taco Bell for the squad. Not that bad, not that bad. But, second year, you're paying the interest on the first year and on the second year. So now you're paying $36.39 the first semester, $49.90 the second semester. Hey, $50 a month for a college student, that's not nothing. That's not nothing. It's definitely going to pinch in on the movie and axe throwing fund, right? The fun fund, as I like to call it. Third year, fifth and sixth semester, now you're paying $65.49 a month to $81.09 a month. This is just interest. This is just the interest only on your Stafford student loan to stay in good standing for the privilege of having borrowed this money. By your fourth year of college, you could be paying over $112 a month and 6 months thereafter college just to pay the interest on your loan. You're not making progress. You're not getting out of debt. And then, let's say I picked a hypothetical, an aggressive 10-year plan to pay it all off in 10 years. Show of hands, who took out some student loans? It's cool, we're just friends. A couple of us, yeah. Not a lot of participation in that one. I'm not going to further that with more questions. But, a lot of people take more than 10 years to pay off their loans, and that's, what it is. But let's say you take 10 years. Let's say you put me on a plan where 10 years from now it's going to all be paid off. That means you're paying $286.28 a month. Guys, that's most of a car payment. That's a good chunk of rent. That's a reason to keep living at mom and dad's for a few more years, right? Living in your basement. Now, obviously, with a longer term, it's going to be a lower amount, but then a higher part of it is going to be interest. Less of it goes to principal. Now, on this aggressive, pay it off as fast as you can plan, that means the red part is the principal you'll pay. Blue part is the interest and fees that you'll pay. So on these cheapest available loans, you've borrowed $26,715 for 4 years. That's the $27,000 minus the fees that they pack in. The total repayment is $40,753, which means the interest and fees is $14,000. And if you can't think of a better use for $14,000 than fees and interest on a student loan, give it to me. I'll take it. I'll take it on vacation. I'll show it all around Hawaii. We'll have a good time, me and your $14,000. You don't like that, do you? Then don't waste it. Be careful. Make smart decisions about borrowing. I'm not here to tell you not to borrow. I'm here to tell you to borrow responsibly. And parents, help your students understand these things. Because the biggest reason why we have a student loan debt crisis is that every adult in these students' lives is saying, oh, no, this is good. This is proper. This is the good kind of debt, they say. Their teachers, their people at the college, their parents. Oh, yeah, this is fine. Dad, it's only a little. It's fine. Sign. And then they wake up a decade later and, they're making real-life financial decisions about family planning based on I've got high student loans. One reason why inflation happened as bad as it did right now is because we didn't turn the student loans back on when the pandemic subsided to, endemic levels. Endemic conditions, let's just say. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying that's a reality that people who did not have that disposable income because they had to pay their student loans suddenly did. And they bought goods, which drove up demand for those goods. That's a fact. We got a baby boom. People can suddenly afford to have kids, which is good for them if that's what they want. But there's just real life on a macro level changes that happen. This means for every dollar you borrow, you pay back $1.53 in loans and between principal, loans, interest, and fees. That's crazy. That's a 5% loan. Suddenly it's 53%, right? Because it, over times, that APR keeps chugging. A lot of students, if you ask them, hey, if you got a 5% interest on a $100,000 loan, what are you going to pay in interest? They'll say, $5,000. Yeah, sure you will. Show them a mortgage calculator. Show them how much, interest and principal. All right, so guys, let's get away from the doom and gloom for a bit. Let's talk about some free money. Free money, yay! You guys go, yay! All right, so free money from colleges can come in a few different varieties, and we'll talk about why they might give it to you. So there's merit money. Merit money is a college saying, you know what? You're going to make us look good. You're going to pull up our grades. You're going to pull up our scores. You're going to pull up our yield. You're going to pull up our retention. You're going to pull up our graduation rate. You're going to help other students accomplish those things. You're going to go out into the world and do great things and spread the word about our school. You know what I saw on Facebook this afternoon? A friend of mine got invited to the White House. That's exciting, right? Got to invite. He's one of the people who's leading the March for Moms, I think it's called, something like that, which is all about raising awareness of maternal mortality in America and the way that race impacts it. And he got invited to the White House. And you know what? It made the news back at his college. They're like, yeah, this guy's going to the White House. He's one of our students. Yeah. So if they think you're going to go do great things, they may be more willing to give you merit aid. Merit aid may also just be a straight-up marketing tool where a college does one of two things. One, they drive up the cost of the college artificially to then give more aid. Let me ask you guys a question. If a college offers your student $20,000 a year, how's your student going to feel about that college? You're going to feel good. It's going to make them want to commit because they feel wanted there. They feel valued and appreciated there. So Albion College last year cost $67,000. But the average merit scholarship for students who got no amount of need-based scholarship, the average scholarship was $37,000. Well, if it's a $67,000 school, and I'm sorry, I should mention, 100% of students get merit aid there, get merit scholarships, and the average merit scholarship is $37,000. So if everybody's getting merit scholarships and the average is $37,000, it's a $30,000 school, not a $67,000 school. It's called a markup for a markdown. It's an age-old marketing tool. It's like you go to Black Friday and they've doubled the price. They give you half off. All right, other schools, they just know, you know what? This student has better opportunities at other schools than our school. The only way we're going to get them is if we, make it worth their while. I have seen multiple times students turn down Ivy League schools for good, great schools because the money was there. I had a student get into Brown who chose to go to Rutgers on a full presidential scholarship. Full. Because that was the right move for him. He was the oldest of three. It was the responsible move. I have a student who, he's a freshman right now. His sister's one of my seniors I'm working with. But I'll actually see him in March. I have a student who, he got into UPenn, Ivy League, didn't get any money. Chose to go to USC because they offered him a ton of money. So now he's in Southern California, and he can afford to go to that college. So a college might say, this kid's got better prospects than us. This kid can get into Brown. This kid can get into UPenn. We better offer them something because getting some of your money is better than getting none of your money. They're doing the calculation, and also this kid brings up all of our averages, right? Makes us look good. We get Ivy caliber kids at our school. Then there is, I keep turning this thing off so I don't click by accident and I forget. There's need-based aid. Now, some of the need-based aid is straight up from the government. Some of it is from the college as well. And some of it is based only on your FAFSA, and other schools will ask for the CSS profile, the College Scholarship Service. Who had to fill that out at some point for your kids just now? Oh, a bunch of you guys, yeah. All right, the only college in New Jersey that asks for the CSS profile is Stevens. They're the only one. There's a combination of public and private schools on the CSS profile, but it's like the FAFSA on steroids. I'm not going to get deep into it, but some schools will reach into their endowment to create need-based aid for students. Now we got to talk. Some schools are what's called need blind. And that means that when a student applies, the admissions office and the financial aid office don't talk. So admissions has no idea if you can afford it when they decide to accept you. They send you an acceptance letter, they send your file over to financial aid, and then weeks or even months later, you get your award letter. So for those of you who got an acceptance letter but no award money, wait for a couple reasons. One, that's very normal, nothing is wrong, it takes them time, it's a separate department. And second of all, if you make a deposit while you're still waiting on an award letter, it can affect your award letter, because why should they offer you a deal you've already signed? Right? Who commits to a contract and then asks for a discount? A little late there, right? So that's very normal. So those schools are need blind. Other schools are not need blind. And if they're not need blind, we call those schools need aware. And what need aware means is the admissions office and the financial aid office may talk. And your ability to afford that education may be one of the things that college considers in determining which students to accept. Yes, they want to create merit scholarships for the students they're trying to recruit to make them look good and build the school that they want. Yes, they want to create need-based aid for the students that they want to get there but cannot afford it. But they also have an operational budget. Who here has been on a college tour? Landscaping was nice, wasn't it? That cost money. Buildings looked nice, weren't they? That cost money. Oh, they were doing construction, right? Oh God, don't walk down Elm right now. You guys walk down Elm, it's just construction. You can't even hear yourself think walking through Princeton. I said, how long is it going to be? He said, oh, it's only going to be a few more years. You live like this? You know, just tell us it's going to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve and we'll be okay with it forever. 2 weeks, in and out, easy peasy. All right. But all those things cost money, and that money's got to come from somewhere. So they're trying to balance the students who can't afford it with the students who can, so that overall they get the money they need to run the college. And some parents think, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA because I want them to accept me first. Because if they see I don't have the money, they might not accept me. Well, some kids they are going to give scholarships to. And if you fill out the FAFSA and they see you have need and they want you, they might offer you need. But if you play funny games and don't fill out your FAFSA, then they don't give you money. And that school accepted you thinking you didn't need any money, and now you can't afford to go because you needed some money. And at the end of the day, parents, I would much rather the college say no. They're never going to give you a reason. They don't say it's because you couldn't afford it. They don't say it's because you had a B in chemistry. They don't tell you why. You know, it's like a job interview, though we've chosen to go in a different direction. Is all they tell you. You know, we've gone with other candidates. Best of luck. Not enough space for you today. They're not going to tell you why. I'd much rather the college tell your student no than you have to tell your student no. Because if you let your kid apply to a need-aware school without submitting your financial stuff, and then they get accepted, and then you can't afford it, then you have to tell them, look, honey, I know you got the grades, I know you got the scores, I know you wrote the essays, I know you did the extracurriculars, I know you did everything, and you got in. You can't go, I'm sorry. Because if the college turns them down, they're going to throw themselves in the bed, and they're going to pout, and eventually dust themselves off and look at the list of other colleges that have accepted them and pick one, and buy the t-shirt, and get the bumper sticker, and get hyped. But if you tell them no to their dream school, you're never going to stop hearing about it. Every Thanksgiving for the rest of your life until you can turn your hearing aid down, you're going to be hearing it. So fill out these forms and let the chips fall where they may. There's also athletic scholarships, but I'll be the bearer of bad news. Only 2% of high school athletes go on to receive any athletic scholarship dollars. D3 schools cannot give your students athletic dollars, and D3 coaches lie. I've had multiple D3 coaches in my office tell me that when they're trying to recruit a student, they will tell the student that they can get them a scholarship, even though they know they can't. They say to the student, look, you and I both know it's D3, so we can't say that it's sports, but like, I've got an in over in financial aid. Let me talk to somebody. I can massage a little bit for you. And what they do is they go down to financial aid and say, hey, Gladys, you got a Joe Smith over there? And she says, yeah. And the coach says, yeah, hold back some of the money for that kid. Then you get your award letter and coach calls. Hey, did you get your award letter? Yeah. How much you get? Oh, I got this much. What? Only that little? That's outrageous. I'm going to go talk to somebody. Okay, Gladys, you got a Joe Smith down there? Yeah. Release the rest of the money for Joe Smith. And then when the rest of the money shows up, you feel like the coach got you the money and the coach just played a little game. And if it's your top choice college and that's where you want to go, And the coach wants to do a little dance, so you do a little dance, make them feel like they got you, whatever. But do not pick a college because some coach promised you money that does not say that it comes from the coach, because that is not real. FYI. If any coach ever says, I'm a little tight right now, but why don't you, commit to the college and, we'll see how your times are freshman year and then maybe sophomore year I can get you some money. They got a budget. They spent that budget on somebody they're actually trying to recruit. It's not you. They're never going to give you that money because you know what they're going to do with the money next year? Recruit new people. If they're not giving you the money on day one, you're not going to get the money later. What is this? What's his name from Popeye? Sweet Pea? Going to gladly give you a scholarship next year for good running times this year? Nuts. Most importantly, guys, never commit to a college before you see the final numbers. When my son was in high school, he would say, hey, Dad, can I do blah, blah, blah? And I would say, oh, okay, how much is it? And he'd say, never mind. What do you think I'm going to do? Just say yeah, sure, money is no object. Obviously it is. Money is real. I will tell you that student who wanted to go to UChicago, he was like, oh, we don't need loans. My parents have the money. It's going to be fine. And then literally the next week I was working with his parents on their financial aid applications. And I'm looking at the money. I'm like, you need to talk to him because he thinks you can afford UChicago cash. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you got to talk to him. And the thing is with early decision commitments, there's a lot less you can do with negotiating. It's not impossible, but there's less you can do. So let's talk about 3 ways to lower your cost of attendance. One is you can earn it. You can earn money off the cost of college by making smart choices like getting into the honors college. Almost every college has something like an honors college, a scholars school, a fellows program, whatever they want to call it. And every honors college comes with a combination of benefits to the student and requirements of the student. And common benefits may include a scholarship, maybe a big scholarship, maybe in-state rates for out-of-state students. That's a big scholarship. Could also include things like first priority on picking classes. Could also include things like smaller class sizes. Could include having a mentor to help you along. Could include dorming with other honors college students in a living, learning community or whatever. But then requirements may include more academically rigorous class load, may include a research project, may include a double major or interdisciplinary studies or study abroad, which maybe you were planning to do it anyway, but did you want it to be required? A requirement could be you have to live with the honors college students. Eric, you put that in both columns. Yes, because some students are like, I'm living among the creme de la creme. These are my people. And some folks are like, but I wanted to party. So depending on how you look at it, could be a benefit, could be a requirement. And it is your students' responsibility to research these colleges, honors schools, and find out, is it for them? Now, on some applications, it asks, do you want to be considered for the honors college? And you say yes. And sometimes it's, okay, write an extra essay, and you're like, drats, they got me. And other times, there's no extra essay. Other times, a college doesn't ask you in the application. When they accept you, they say, now that you're accepted, if you'd like to apply for the honors college, you may do that. Maybe there's an extra essay or two. And then also, for some schools, they accept you, and also, we just think you belong in the honors college. If you want that, here's an invitation. You can take it or not. It's an option. So it's students' responsibility to find out what are the benefits, what are the requirements, and are the benefits worth the requirements? And if it's enough money, maybe it is, but not every school has the same benefits. Some schools don't give you money for that. Some schools, if you're in the honors program, then you can apply for the honors college scholarship, which not everyone in the honors college gets. Read the fine print carefully. Another way you can earn money off the cost of college, I keep turning this thing off, I think I'm going to save myself and I embarrass myself, is you can test again. So for when the pandemic happened, colleges stopped using scores, test scores, SATs and ACTs, as a means of measuring for scholarships. And what we're starting to see a little bit, we're starting to see very quietly some colleges that are test optional go back to using scores for scholarships. So what they're not telling you when they say you can apply without scores is, but we're not going to consider you for certain scholarships. That's a scam. Right? They should have told me that. So if you submitted scores testing again may bring you up. Some schools have built-in scholarship brackets for things like scores, things like grades, that if you are in a bracket, maybe you're in the top bracket. Okay, then you got what you got. When my son got into his top choice college, he got a $21,000 scholarship. His mother and I were elated. And then I dug through the website and I found out, oh, you know what? That's actually the middle scholarship. There's a higher scholarship. And he's got the GPA for it. He's 2 ACT points shy. Well, if ever there was a dad in a position to help their kid improve their ACT score 2 points, guys, I know I like hanging out with you guys some nights, but I teach the SAT and ACT most of the time. So yeah, we got practice tests. Let's go. So, find out if there's a higher bracket. If there's a higher bracket, how close are you to the next bracket? And ask the college, if I get to the next bracket, can you reevaluate me for the scholarships? And some colleges say, no, we've evaluated, we made our decisions. Okay. Other schools say, yes, if you get those grades with your mid-year grades, if you get those grades by your end-of-the-year grades, and now you're in the next bracket, we'll create the extra dollars for you. You'll qualify. So find those things out. Because if you're this close, you put in the work and you get that money. And again, for parents, that may be a conversation with your kids that like, look, if you work hard in school, you can get some more money and then we can afford it and then you can go there. But if you don't put in the work, we can't afford it. You're picking a different school. And that's a conversation. And maybe your kids are motivated. Maybe your kids are like my kid, like, oh, never mind. Never mind. You could do work study. Work study is a way you can earn money off the cost of college. Let's talk about work study. We talked about it at Financial Aid Night, but let's talk about it again because it's fun. So work study is money that your student can get for working a job when they're in college. And for federal work study, it is based on need as determined by the FAFSA. We talked about that button on the FAFSA. And if your student is awarded in their award letter work study, there's all different jobs they can work, like mopping floors and serving food in the cafeteria and checking ID badges in the dorm and answering phones in the bursar's office and filing paperwork in the registrar's office and giving student-led tours. Who's ever been on a tour that was led by a student? That's a work study job. Yeah, they might be getting paid with our tax dollars. What a country. Okay, so if they're offered work study in their reward letter, they are guaranteed a job, but they are not guaranteed the job that they want. Like any job, you got to compete for it. You got to get dressed nice, you got to make a resume, you got to interview well. Now more of the stuff might be online with applications. Maybe there's some kind of like work study job fair in the first week before classes start. You got to go booth to booth, whatever they do. My son, when he started college freshman year, his work study job was keeping track of the scoreboard at the sports game. That's fun, right? You get paid to go to the games. Problem, my son's an athlete. So a lot of his games were scheduled the same time he was supposed to be working. So he had to keep giving away his shifts to other students who got that money and he didn't. You don't do the work, you don't get the money. And not everybody who gets offered work study even applies for a job. Sophomore year, my son ratcheted up a level. I said, so George, what's your work study job this year? And he said, oh, they were full. They're not full. They get federal dollars to make you do work. It costs them nothing. They're paying you with OPM, right? Other people's money. They're going to find something for you to do. It's free to them. He said, well, my friends are working at the rec center. I figured that'd be fun, but the rec center was full, so I guess they're full. Yeah, the rec center's full. You snoshed, you lost. Your friends got there first. Maybe this year you got to mop floors. And something I'm fond of telling my students at this point in the conversation is, you're not too good to mop a floor. Every job has dignity, every job has to get done. Maybe next year you get there earlier. Maybe next year you work your way up in the custodial department. Now you're managing freshmen. I don't know. Consider it. You can get non-federal work study jobs. So if you don't qualify, if you don't get it in your award letter, you can still get dressed up nice and make a resume and knock on doors or go to the fair or do it online or however they do it. And if that department has work that needs doing and they've got budget left over, yeah, they might hire you. So don't think if you don't get awarded it in your award letter that you can't do it. Now, I like work study for a few reasons. One, it gives you work experience. Gives you work experience that can be transferable skills. Because right now, our focus is getting your kids into college. But 4 years from now, the focus is getting them into their first job in their career, right? And every recruiter trying to hire imminent or recent college graduates, they're looking for somebody with 2 qualifications. 1, they can pay them bupkis because they have no experience. And 2, they have at least 2 years of experience. Who are these Schrodinger's job applicants who both do and do not have work experience, right? They're people who did work study, because working in an office environment is a transferable skill. Answering phones is a transferable skill. For our students, we run practice tests on Saturday and Sunday, and all of our proctors are college students who started out with us when they were in high school that over time stuck around. And one of them is she's a senior at Rutgers, and her work-study job was student security at the football games. But now her work-study job is she's the supervisor for those students. She makes the schedule, she holds the meetings, she does the postmortems after a game, what went right, what went wrong, and she doesn't have to go work at the game anymore. That's a transferable skill, right? That's work experience. You get professional references. When you're applying for your first job and you got to list references, what are you going to list? The shift lead at Starbucks where you were a barista? Or the head of student housing, the director of student life, the dean of undergraduate admissions? That's a better reference, isn't it? Right? It looks better. I like that work study is student first employment. Your boss views you as a student first. They're going to prioritize your education. And when you have exams and say, hey boss, I got exams next week, can I take off? And the boss is at the Bursar's office says, yeah, absolutely, this is what you're here for. Get good grades. If you tell your boss at the restaurant downtown, hey listen boss, I need off next week, I got exams. Boss doesn't care you got exams. That you go to school is your problem. Boss cares that you're on the schedule, and if you're not going to be here next week, he's going to fire you. You'd much rather have a boss that prioritizes your education. They got to pay you at least federal minimum wage, which right now is $7.25. Don't like it? Vote. In New Jersey, the minimum wage is $14.13 an hour as of January 1st. Nice round 1413. It's pi backwards. The decimal in the wrong spot. Whatever, it's not the point. The point is that 90% of Americans live in a state or municipality with a higher minimum wage than the federal 7.25. And a college may choose to compete with the local going rate, but legally they only have to pay you 7.25. If they want to get the talent, instead of you going to get a job downtown, they might compete. But, you know, it's their decision. And the amount that you see in your award letter is a lie because there's going to be taxes taken out. I got a student, he's a freshman in college now. I work with his sister, she's in 11th grade. But about a year ago, the student was working at the Wawa because this is when they were offering a $500 sign-on bonus, but you had to stay for 2 months. And he hated it, and he hated it every day. And he said, I'm hanging on for that $500. And that $500 in his head was as good as spent. He knew exactly what he was going to get for that $500. And so one day I said, so how's the job? He goes, oh, I quit. I said, you got the bonus? And he's like, yeah, but it was garbage. And I'm like, what? He's like, it was only $340. And I'm like, but they said $500. He said, yeah, but taxes. Welcome to the rest of your adult life, my young friend. So taxes are going to be taken out. Also, this does not come off your bill. It is paid to your student like any other paycheck. And my sincere suggestion is they put half of it toward their bill because they got to have some skin in the game and take responsibility for this college bill. This is what they got the job for, was to help afford college, but put the other half in their pocket because they need it for those indirect expenses like living expenses. They should be taking responsibility for the fun fund. They should be responsible for, pizza and movies and axe throwing with friends and the escape room or whatever the heck they're doing. Let them keep some of the money for that so they're not calling you for money every day. They'll be more careful when it's their money. Okay, this is what you all came here for. But you had to understand all those other pieces so that when we get to this part, now you understand. You understand the leverage you may or may not have. You understand the different ways in which colleges may try to meet your need. So before we can actively negotiate, we got to put together the real cost of each college. This goes in your spreadsheet. You need a column for COA. I told you that already. You also need a column for the award that is true free money, gift aid. You're not going to count loans. That's not a favor. You're not going to count work study. That's portable. You're not going to count the Pell Grant or the TAG, because you can get that no matter where you go for the Pell Grant, no matter where you go in New Jersey for the TAG. You should count the FSEOG, even though it's federal dollars. The college made the decision to give it to you. That's coming from them. So you make a column for COA, you make a column for award, and you subtract. And the difference is the real cost. Apples to apples, same year COA. All next year, all this year, flat. Now you have a real cost. Now you can negotiate with colleges, because a lot of students will see a $70,000 school offering them $20,000. So what's the bill now? 50, right? And then a $55,000 school offering them $10,000. Now what's the bill? Which award was higher? 20 or 10? 20. Which bill is higher, the 45 or the 50? Right. So the school offering you more money is still charging you more money. Sometimes a smaller award may lead to a lower real cost, and that's the number we care about. Apples to apples. So we're going to start with admissions, and let's talk about who admissions is. Admissions is the sales department of a college, and they're trying to sell you maybe the second most expensive thing you've ever bought in your life after your house. Maybe even more expensive than a house. Like if you want to go to UChicago and it's $350,000 over the next 4 years. Show of hands, whose first house cost less than that? Right? You're not even going to have a house to live in for that money. They're going to put it into your kid's head, and you got to hope they remember some of it. So, the admissions office is the sales office, and like any sales office, they have broken up the country into territories, broken up the world, in fact, into territories. So there's going to be an admissions person for Mercer County, or for Central Jersey, or for North Jersey, or South Jersey, however they want to consider us here, or for New Jersey, or for the Northeast, or for New Jersey and New York, or whatever the heck it is, however they've divided things up. I was at Stevens back in November, and I was talking to this admissions person, and they have in New Jersey a person for, like, each person in New Jersey has like 1 or 2 counties. But her district, her territory is California, Oregon, Washington, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. She's got a lot more ground to cover than 1 county. The further from the school you get, the fewer potential applicants you have. So you want to find out who is your person, because that person, your admissions rep, has 3 jobs. And these 3 jobs come in 3 seasons. I'm going to tell you guys how this stuff works. There is fall, winter, and spring. Fall is travel season for the admissions officers. That's why there's so many more college fairs in the fall. That's why we have admissions reps coming to the high school all through the fall, right? They're traveling. They're meeting students. They're trying to qualify leads. It's a sales job. They're trying to get students to apply to the school. Their first job is getting students to apply. Then they get to winter. Winter is reading season. It's where they read applications, and it's part of their job to vote and lobby for and champion the students from their territory, right? These are the kids from my territory that I think are going to yield, that I think are going to retain, that I think are going to graduate and do us proud, right? So it's part of their job is to vote and lobby for their students, for their territory. It's reading season, that's winter, it's where we are right now. Then they get to spring. Spring is yield season. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get the students who they got to apply, who they convinced everybody else to vote yes on, and got accepted, to then get those kids into this education. And this is the time when we start negotiating with them. They want you. And once you have your award letter, they've made you an offer. And now it's your turn to either accept their offer, decline their offer, or counter offer. This is a sales negotiation. Okay? So, I want you to understand, before we move on, that like I said, you have all the cards now. They've made their offer, ball's in your court. If you ask for more money, you lose nothing. They will not say, well, now you get nothing because you asked. That's not how it works. You have nothing to lose. So students have to make these phone calls. It cannot be the parents. Students are going to call admissions, and here's what you're going to tell them. You're going to say, hi, this is so-and-so from Princeton High School. I've been accepted for the fall. I'm very excited. You're my top choice college. And if you were awarded anything, you can mention, and I was awarded this much money, if that's the case. But, you will say, you know, I got this other offer from this other college. Tell them what the college is. Tell them what the offer is. Make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Princeton's not going to negotiate with Rutgers. Rutgers is not going to negotiate with Stockton. You know, apples to apples. I got this other offer from this other school, and my parents are saying, parents, they're going to throw you under the bus, okay? This is what you're for right now. My parents are saying, I got to pick the less expensive school, and they definitely want me to go to your college. You can't make there be too big of a barrier. If they feel like you're a lost cause, they're not going to waste time with you. You got to make them feel like they are this close to you yielding. They're this close. Make them taste that deposit. My parents would let me, and is there any way that you can match that price? And then you stop talking. And you let that question hanging in the air as long as it takes. Now, some colleges will say, no, we don't do that. Okay. They don't. That's what it is. Okay. We'll go on to the next thing. Some colleges say, if you'd like to apply for our price match program, go to this website, fill out this form, submit your offer from the other school. Okay, take good notes. Did you know some colleges have a price match program? No, they don't advertise it. They only tell you if you ask. It's like a secret club. You got to know the keyword. You got to ask them to match the price. Then they tell you how to get that. And then you apply. And this is why you cannot make up an offer you don't actually have. Because they will ask you for the offer from the school. They will ask you for the award letter. Show me. Prove it to me. You have to tell them what price you're looking for. You can't just say, I want it to be less. And you can't just say, because I want it. But if you say, look, this school is giving me this price, and if you give me this amount of money, this price, then I will go there. If you say, I want $20,000 off, what are you, out of your mind? You got to give them a reason. You know, show them that you're desired. Show them that their competition is prioritizing you. And make them think, did I miss something about this kid? Maybe I should have competed harder for this kid. In fact, now that I see my rival school wants them, I want them even more. You know what? I will match that price. Yes, you come here. I want you, not them. Get in their heads. Other schools say somewhere in between. They say, well, we really don't do that, but, let me talk to my boss. Let me see what I can do, and I'll get back to you. Okay. Thank you. And then you wait. And maybe you hear from them, maybe you don't. And if you don't hear from them, you can follow up with them in a week and a day. Less than that, you're a pain. A week and a day is reasonable. And you follow up, and maybe they say, well, I couldn't match it, but I can get you somewhere in the middle. I can get you this scholarship for the, study abroad. I can give you this, whatever they can give you. You say, thank you. Can you please update that in my portal on your website, or can you please send that to me in a letter or in an email so I can show it to my parents so that I can, see about getting them to make a deposit? Don't commit to anything. We go from the bottom up. You take that offer, then you go to the next school. And you say, look, I got this offer from this other school. Can you match it? We go from the bottom up because any college who might meet you in the middle, if you can lower where they're competing, you just lower to the middle as well, right? This is a negotiation. This is how it works. You call up the next school. Hi, this is so-and-so, Princeton High School. I've been accepted, very excited. You're my top choice college. Everyone's your top choice college. Everyone's your favorite. You're the one for me, Bubba. I love you. And you do it again. Now, students, once you are done with the admissions, win or lose, and let me tell you, you're going to get more no's than yeses, but you ask. Don't ask, don't get, right? Nothing ever came to those who didn't ask for it. My wife, when she was in college, she had an internship at a publishing company, and she was good. And she had a mentor who was an adjunct professor at the college, which is how she, learned about the internship. And toward the end of the internship, her mentor invited her in, sit down, have a seat. So, what would you like to do after this internship? And, I kind of look for a job in, this kind of field. So, do you want to work here? She said, I would love to work here. Then you need to walk into Max's office and you need to tell him you want to work here and ask him for a job. And that's what she did, and that's how she wound up as the managing editor of 5 magazines for a number of years. But if she hadn't asked, the internship would have ended and she would have just left. And that would have been that. You have to ask. Once the students are done with this round, now parents can call financial aid. Financial aid will talk to you. Admissions will not talk to you. Even though you're the one paying, you're not the customer. The student is the customer. You're the checkbook. Now, the financial aid is like the financing office of a car dealership, where once the salesperson has got you, the sales office helps them close that sale by getting the numbers right, working it till your payment's what you want, and yada, yada. So parents, you're going to call financial aid, and you're going to say, hi, this is so-and-so, my child is such and such, Princeton High School, class of 23, been accepted, top choice school, wearing the t-shirt, but we got this award letter. It is not what we were expecting. I don't know if we're going to be able to afford this. I don't know. I mean, I lost a job, or I got less commission this year than on my FAFSA year. I taken time off to care for a loved one. I got these elder care bills I'm paying for my parents. I got a special needs kid at home. I've got, you saw a bunch of money come in from an inheritance, but that's not normal. Now it's in a trust. I don't have that. We put it into the mortgage. We blah, blah, whatever your sob story is, it's time to sob. Tell them what you got. Give them a reason. And you say, is there any reason, any way that you could take a second look at our financials and reconsider? And it's at this moment that a very helpful person in the financial aid office will say, if you'd like to appeal the financial aid decision, go to this website, fill out this form, submit your documents, yada, yada, yada. Okay, jot it down. What you're not going to do is you're not going to call them and say, hi, I would like to appeal, because now you're an adversary. Now you're somebody who knows how it works and you're trying to engage them in combat. You got to walk in there like some country bumpkin. You're like, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? And they say, oh, you little idiot. I'll show you. It's called an appeal. Oh, it is. Thank you. Let them feel like they're in charge, and then hustle them for their money. Don't play cards with me. All right? You got to let them feel like, listen, be subservient. Let them feel like they are the masters of the universe, these pencil pushers in the financial aid office of a public university. They control the world. Okay, whatever you want, boss. And then you fill this stuff out. Now, sometimes if you have genuine change of circumstance, they may reevaluate and they may give you more aid because you have more need. Good. Find that stuff out. The number one question I get when I'm doing financial aid nights is my FAFSA is not reflecting my reality. This is the moment. It's time to appeal financial aid, which you can't do till you have an award letter to appeal, which you can't do if you didn't fill out the FAFSA or the CS's profile from a school. You can't do this. Now, some colleges, they will look at your stuff and say, yep, this person has more need, give it to them. Some colleges will say, this is the same thing. It's the same income, it's the same assets. This guy's wasting our time. Get him out of here. Okay, it cost you nothing. It cost you an hour. Some colleges say, this is the same thing. It's same income, same assets. I don't know, Bob, give him $2,000 to make him shut up and sign. Okay. Because if you were going to pick that college anyway, get that couple $1,000. Because sometimes it's for all 4 years. So it's times 4. Woohoo! I've had families get an extra $2,000 a year. That's $8,000. If you're borrowing anything, you're taking it out of what you're borrowing, so it's $8,000 plus interest. And if you're paying 53 cents on the dollar for your interest and fees, you just saved $12,000 for making a phone call and filling out a form. And I think that's worth it, don't you? It all adds up. The one thing I'll caution you about, and I'll take your question, is if you're making more money now than when you filled out the FAFSA, if you have more assets now than when you filled out the FAFSA, the appeal is a whole fresh look. And if you have less need, they can reduce your need-based aid. So only do this if you have the same or less. Was that your question? What's your question?
So you mentioned specifically having the student call and then
Admissions.
and the parents call financial aid.
After the admissions is resolved.
Right. Is there sense to trying to handle any of this when you do the campus tour?
So whenever you talk to your person, whether it's in person in their office or on the phone, there's all different schools of thought. I feel in my heart, I feel like walking into somebody's office. I'm sorry, what? Repeat the question. Yes. The question is there any sense in trying to do this negotiation in person while you're on a campus tour? Maybe. I feel like walking into somebody's office and sitting yourself down and asking for money, and now they're like, it's very uncomfortable. And like they may basically give you, I'll see what I can do to get you out the door and not commit to anything, and be like, I never want to have that person in my life again. Really depends on like who you're talking to. Some people, they're like, hey, they're salespeople. They get it. You're like them. I'm like you. And they're like, this is how we make a deal. You don't know who you're going to get. And I'll tell you, about 80% of admissions officers are young women who have been out of college fewer than 5 years. I'm making up that percent, but that's been my experience, and I've spoken to a lot of them. And it's very intimidating when some man walks into their office and says, now you're going to give me money. Like, that's how it feels. It's not a great feeling. My suggestion is you do a phone call, and if you can't get a hold of them by phone, you follow up with an email. If you don't hear back, you move on to the next department. Yes? Yes. Yes. Parents should call the financial aid department, yes.
Right. What about if the kid's already accepted into the school, should a parent call the financial aid fresh after the first year?
We'll talk about what happens later. Right now we're still on before you commit. All right, so now when the parent calls financial aid for school 1, student is calling admissions for school 2. We're not waiting. We're going on to the next school. You hand off the baton and go to the next one, right? Then, after the parent calls financial aid and gets whatever they're going to get, now the student can call financial aid. Hi, this is so-and-so, class of 23, Princeton High School, been accepted, top choice school. Are there any other scholarships I could be applying for? And some schools say no. All the scholarships are considered based on the strength of your application, nothing else you can do. Okay. Other schools say yes, there are other scholarships that you may be able to apply for. And you got to go on their website and, start by looking at their website before you call them, because you might be able to get the answer yourself. Or you can call them and say, hey, so I saw on your website A and B and C, is there anything else? They say, yeah, there's a D thing. Okay, good. So students look on their website and find out what other scholarships there might be. Again, when my son got his acceptance letter to his top choice college and he got a scholarship, I dug through the website and I found an extra $2,000 a year, president's something, dean's whatever it was, renewable for 4 years, but you got to compete, you got to write an essay. Only some students get it, and it's only students who apply. Okay, so you got to write an essay. So find these things, because they may be through the college, they may be for like girls in STEM, they might be for like the alumni chapter for New Jersey or whatever they're from. You might be able to find these things from the school. Then there's also third-party scholarships. We talked about these things at Financial Aid Net, but I'm talking about them again right now. Third-party scholarships. So your student and the college are in a two-party relationship. Anybody else is a third party. Why might a third party want to help your kid to go to college? Well, it might be your employer. Check with your employer. My son got a scholarship from his mom's employer. That was money we didn't have to spend. Great. Check with HR. Could be a club they're a part of. Could be a team they're on. Could be the place where they work. Could be an organization they volunteer with. Could be for students from Princeton High School, right? You got some of those? Yeah, for sure. So there's some places to look. I recommend you look at Unigo. That's a good college website with a well-curated scholarship component. I like CAPEX, C-A-P-P-E-X, good college website with an up-to-date scholarship section. I like bigfuture.org. That is a good college website with lots of information, and it's got an easy-to-navigate scholarship piece. There are other websites. There is scholarships.net. There is FastWeb. There are apps like Scholly. There are lots of these things. You can go down the rabbit hole. These are the ones I use when I'm researching scholarships for my students. Beyond that, Google is your friend. A parent said, are there scholarships for students who are partially blind? Google it. Are there scholarships for Ukrainian refugees? Google it. There are books. Check your library. Be aware that once these things go to print, they might get out of date. Okay, so, the more current stuff, the better. The internet has current stuff. Guidance. Guidance has a website. You have a website, right? You have a website. Guidance has a website, and it's full of scholarships, right? It's full of scholarships, you guys, and you should be digging through those things. Now, some schools, even when the time is right, send the scholarships to the students. Hey, everybody, here's some scholarships. But that's generally senior year. And some scholarships you can start applying when you're a freshman, sophomore, junior. You don't have to wait till senior year of high school for some scholarships. You can start digging through those things even if you have younger kids. You don't have to wait. There are military options. I'm not saying your kids should join the military. I'm saying if they're considering military options, they should add to what they're considering ROTC, because there is a Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship for the Army, Navy, and Air Force that can pay between half and all of your tuition. It is a 6-year commitment in the reserves. Junior and senior year of college count. It's not for everyone. There is National Guard. Every state does a different thing. In New Jersey, it's free tuition and fees. In Pennsylvania, it's half tuition and fees. In Virginia, it's in-state rates for out-of-state students. I have a student going to University of Kentucky who's in the Kentucky National Guard. He's from Freehold. He got, from University of Kentucky, a full-ride scholarship for tuition and fees only. It was specific. But the National Guard would also pay his full tuition and fees. So when he negotiated with the college, his negotiation was if he can apply his tuition and fees scholarship from them to his room and board there. And knowing that he was going to get the full tuition and fees paid by the state for the National Guard, it's a sure thing. They're going to get that bill paid. Very little risk. So they applied his scholarship to the room and board, and he's got all of his direct expenses paid for now. That was his negotiation. That's what he chose to negotiate for. Now, one thing I will tell you guys about any kind of scholarship, specifically, forget the military stuff. For the third-party scholarships, bribe your kids. Because when I work with students on scholarships, very often my students have a very nonchalant attitude because they think their parents are made of money. Are you made of money? You don't look it. You look made of flesh and bone and viscera and the circulatory system and whatever. You get the point. Bacteria, so much bacteria. My point is that they don't understand why it should matter to them to apply for scholarships. It's not going to help them. It's only going to help you. And what do they care about you? You're a nobody. You're just their life giver. Feeder, houser, clother. What do you matter? So I had a parent give me this great advice, and she said she dealt her kids in 25%. Any scholarship they get 25% of it in cash. And the rest of it goes toward the college. And so it didn't cost her anything she wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And both of her kids applied for some scholarships because that was motivating for them. And both of them got some, and both of them got a little bit of cash, and she saved a little bit of money. Maybe you can negotiate 10% with your kids. Maybe it'll take 50%. Negotiate at your own risk. Pick your battles. All right, so next, parents can call admission. This is our fourth call. This is our fourth and final stop on the train. The student has called and gotten what they can or cannot get. They got a yes, they got a no, they got a something, they got a nothing. The parents called financial aid. You did what you could do. The students called financial aid. They applied for what they could. We're getting close. It's going to be May 1st soon. You don't know if they yielded or not. You don't know if they've hit their yield. You're operating from a position of ignorance. You don't know. Do you have leverage or not? You don't know. But you can try because you have nothing to lose. This is the moment parents can call admissions, your admissions person, and say, hi. So, remember before I said, play dumb? We're done playing dumb. Now we are adversarial. Now we are two adults talking. Now we say, look, bottom line, I want my kid at your school. My kid wants to go to your school. We got this price from the school that I'd be okay with, but I'd rather my kid go to your school. You give me this price, I give you deposit today. That's what it's going to take. You want to think about it? Think about it. This is what I want. I want my kid there, and I want it for this price. And sometimes they blink, and sometimes they don't, but you lose nothing. Because you've been accepted, and you've gotten everything you can get from everything else. And again, the student is on step 3 with the last school, and you're on step 4 with this school. Or student's on step 3 with the next school. You're on step 4 with this school. It's like row, row your boat. First school, row, row. Second school, gently down. Third school, merrily, merrily. We just keep going. Everybody's working on something every week. Now, it's only February 1st, and you guys are still waiting on award letters. This is why we have the conversation now, because you don't have all the information to do these things. But if we waited a month, you might have already made a deposit without knowing you could do these things. So now, as you get these award letters, you build your spreadsheet. You fill things out. You make your plan. You decide which school am I going to compete against which school, right? Which one do I think has the best chance? You can also find in the common data set the average amount of merit scholarship that they give and to what percent of students. If they only give merit scholarship to 7% of the students, you got a low chance. Some schools don't give merit scholarship. They give merit to 0% of students. They only give need-based aid. So if you know they're not going to give you merit aid, don't waste your time calling admissions. They can't do anything for you. It's all financial aid office. You got to, make yourself a battle plan. You've got the next month to arm yourself with this information, organize it, make some choices. You can negotiate during freshman year. Once you're already at the school, once you've committed. I told you some schools, let me take it back. I told you guys some students don't make it to second semester. And some of those students were getting scholarships, need-based, merit-based. And some colleges have pre-filled that second semester with those spring admits who then yielded enough. And others didn't hit that number or they don't do that. Which means some of those dollars are on the table, left behind. Students can go to the financial aid office on the first day back when office is open again after winter break and say, gee, I've been having some hard conversations with my folks over the holidays, and I'm not sure if we can afford to keep me here next year. Is there any other money I could be getting? And some colleges say, no, I'm sorry, it's, whatever's in your package. You can, maybe your FAFSA for next year might be more, I don't know. And some schools say, I do have some money laying around if that would keep you here, because they've already lost some students, and they don't want to lose you too. Make them smell blood in the water. They want a high retention rate. They want you to retain. This is a priority to them. Oh, sorry. Students asked that one. All right, and finally, guys, there are smart choices you can make that can save you money off the cost of college. Look at my time. I'm almost on the nose. You can make smart choices to save money off the cost of college. You can live on campus. Let me tell you guys, obviously commuting is commuting, but if you're gonna be away at college, living on campus is cheaper than off-campus housing most of the time. And a lot of students looking at on-campus housing, they got the old dorms, they got the new dorms. They got like the triple rooms, they got the single rooms, they got the old ones don't have air conditioning, but it's winter, so who cares? And the new ones got all the frills. It's college, it's not vacation. Don't expect the comforts of home. Don't expect your own bedroom. Don't expect the maid to come clean up after you, unless you go to High Point. Don't expect for a lot of room. En español, dormir, to sleep. A dormitory is where you sleep. It is your sleeping pod. You sleep there, and then you live on the rest of the campus. There's a million places to be on the college campus. So get the cheap dorm, save money, make smart choices. Some schools say these are the freshman dorms. That's what there is. Okay. But look for the least expensive dorm options. Fraternities and sororities cost a lot of money, especially if you want to live in the frat house or the sorority house. My opinion, students should pay for that. If the student wants to do it, they can do it. Maybe they should get a summer job to pay for it. Maybe that's their responsibility if they want to spend a bunch of money to buy themselves some friends, because that's, the kind of friends they want, friends who can be bought. I don't know. It's right for some students, but it's a lot of money. And you're paying for an education, not for parties. They can pay for their own parties. Living off campus tends to be more bills. Students will look at the cost of the dorm, and they'll look at the cost of splitting a house with a couple of friends and be like, oh, it's the same price. Yeah, but then you're going to get a gas bill, and you're going to get an electric bill, and you're going to get a water bill, and you're going to get a garbage collection bill, you're going to get a water and sewer bill, you're going to get a cable bill, you're going to get an internet bill, and suddenly it's much more expensive. And students don't know those things because they have no experience with those things. And it's not their fault, but it's your responsibility to educate them on those things and make sure that if they're picking something, it includes all that when you're comparing those two costs. All right? When you were young, you didn't have bills work. My favorite childhood memory was not having bills to pay. It was the best. Why can't things be like they used to be for me? And some students say, I will tell you that when you live off campus, you're going to eat off campus. And eating off campus is more expensive than eating on campus with a meal plan, with a swipe system or whatever it is, in a commissary or whatever. And some students say, we're going to get groceries. We're all going to cook. We're going to save money. You'll see. Yeah, you'll save money until the sink is full of somebody else's dishes nobody else wants to wash. Now you're spending $20 to DoorDash a soggy Big Mac. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Living on campus also keeps your students focused on campus. And when they're focused on campus, they're more likely to graduate on time. You can rent your textbooks and save up to 75 cents, maybe more, on the dollar by renting your textbook. You can rent them a lot of places instead of buying them. You can rent them at the college bookstore. It's not that good of a deal. You can rent them on Amazon, but Amazon sends them in these little bags that then you got to find a box to ship it back in. I like Chegg.com, C-H-E-G-G, chicken, egg, Chegg. That's where I rented all of my son's textbooks all through college, because the box they send it to you in doubles as the return box, and there's a return label inside. So you don't wind up returning it late, and you don't wind up buying the book because you were so late. It's very easy. They can also, some books you'll need 2 semesters, and it's $10 extra to get it for a second semester. It's great. And let me tell you guys something. You can get the last edition. If the syllabus says 15th edition, go for the 14th if it's cheaper. I wouldn't go for the 12th. 1 edition old is close enough. I used to work in publishing, guys. New editions only have to be 10 to 20% different depending on their contract, and usually they just change the pictures and the pagination a little. It's 1 page off. All right, whatever. No one's checking that stuff. And I would not recommend something if I had not tried it myself. And before I tried it myself, I met with the founder of Chegg. I was at BookCon. I told you guys I used to be in publishing. I was at BookCon. That's not true. I was in distribution. My wife was in publishing. I worked a little bit in editorial. It's not the point. The point of the matter is I've worked in these fields, and so I met with the guy. We had a good talk. I felt good about it. I tried it out myself. I recommend it to you. You can also buy used textbooks a lot cheaper than at the bookstore. You can get them on Amazon. I recommend BetterWorldBooks.com. They donate a lot of money to charity, and the books come directly from universities. So when the students go to sell their books back at the end of the semester, and they say, oh, no, we're not taking the 15th edition. We're going to go to the 16th edition next semester, so we're not buying that one. And they turn around, they walk out with their $300 book, the $300 doorstop, and they see a box that says, donate your book and save the world. And they just drop the book in the box on a pallet, and then eventually they come and pick up that pallet. I went down to Georgia, like the devil before me. He went down to Georgia. That's a joke. Charlie Daniels band. You look it up on the way home. My point is, I went down to Athens, Georgia. I spent a day at the Better World Book office, and I like them, and they're good people. Oh, they cut of their jib. They have jib. I like that. And one of the guys said, yeah, I only wish you could see the books, but the books are in South Bend, Indiana. I said, I want to see the books. So a week later, we were in South Bend, Indiana. I saw the books. They're in good condition. I endorse it. When I couldn't find a book to rent, I bought it cheap. If I wanted to write all over it, if my son wanted to write all over it, if it was a workbook, good, get it from Better World Books. That's what I like. Be a resident advisor. The resident advisor is the inmate running the asylum. The RA is the sophomore, junior, senior who is in the dorms with the younger students, and that's your first point of contact if you have a problem with your roommate, if you have a problem with your neighbor, if you need something, you go to the RA before you complain to people above them. And the RA tries to solve the problem. And the RA is getting free or discounted dorms, which means they could be saving $10,000 to $15,000 a year for 3 years. That's $30,000 to $45,000. Now, these responsibilities are not for everyone, and maybe they're not for your student, but it's worth a conversation. And for $30,000 to $45,000, maybe they could take a little responsibility, is all I'm saying. And the way you get to be an RA, because there are more people applying for this position, because the word is out, than there are available spots, you got to be a good resident. You can't be the problem roommate or neighbor. If you have a problem, you have to accept a reasonable resolution. If your RA is doing like an event to build community, show up to those things. Show up a little early, help them set up. Stick around late, help them put chairs away. Because when you apply to be an RA for the next year, your RA is one of the people voting on who gets picked. Oh, this kid's a good egg. This kid, I would trust this kid. This kid's good. This kid, not that kid. Ugh, you don't want that kid in charge. Okay? Or commute, If you're going to Princeton University, you know what? Commute. Princeton requires 100% of their freshmen live on campus unless you are commuting. So if you're going to be living away from home, you can't live off campus. But if you're living with family, with parents, you can live off campus. So, consider those things. You're going to go to Rutgers. Consider it. I'm not saying you have to, but consider it. Big cost saver. And the number one way you can save money off the cost of college is to graduate on time. Guys, show of hands. One more time. Who wants the kid to graduate in 8 years? Who wants the kid to graduate in 6 years? Who wants the kid to graduate in 4 years? Oh, look at those hands. Who would like their kid to graduate in 3.5 years? Oh, the hands went higher, right? Right? So there are things they can do to graduate on time, including transferring in things like dual enrollment credits, AP or IB credits, things like if they struggle with a class and have to retake it in their time on the summer, right? In the summer, on the summer break, maybe in the winter break at their county college and transfer that credit back in. Maybe do 18 credits some semesters to either catch up or to get ahead. That's a way to graduate earlier. Almost gave that away. Think in your head, what percent, hopefully you didn't say it, what percent of first-time college students at public universities in America do you think graduate in 4 years? Think of the number in your head. I'll say it again. What percent of first-time college students in America at public universities graduate on time? Yeah, in 4 years. You have the number? 42.4%. That's lower than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it? Yeah. And the 6-year graduation rate is only 63%. Now, the NCES, that's the National Center for Education Statistics, they've given up tracking the 4-year rate because so many students take longer than that. So now the NCES only tracks the 6- and 8-year graduation rate. You need the 4-year rate. You've got to get that from the college. For private schools, slightly better. 56.8% in 4 years, 68% in 6 years. But some students take more time. At the end of the day, guys, who is ultimately responsible? The answer is the students. The students are responsible. They're responsible for calling these departments and making their best case. They're responsible for doing work study and putting money toward their bill. They're responsible for enthusiastically applying for scholarships that can reduce the cost of the college they want to go to and make it affordable. Because parents, the most important thing you can do is be honest with your students. This is what we can afford. And if you can get the schools for what we can afford, you can go there. But if you can't get these more expensive schools down, then these are the schools that are options for us. And if you have seniors, that's a hard conversation when you've already let them apply. And if you have 9th and 10th and 11th graders, you can start these conversations now. It's not that you're, some penurious curmudgeon who doesn't want them to be happy. It's that there's the budget. There's a budget. We all had at some point the experience of giving our kids a budget for the arcade, a budget for the toy store, like this is what you can spend. It's a good learning experience. Build more of that. Guys, I'm going to give you free stuff, and then I'm going to do questions. I have, there it is. I'd like to have two. Unfortunately, I only have one today, which makes me very sad. But, I have water over here. That would have been good to realize earlier. I was told, I forgot. I have here a fun little book. This is my college visit tracker that I give out to my students when we do college visits. Like in February, we'll do, in 2 weeks, we're doing a visit of Princeton. And we did Monmouth earlier in the year. We'll do public school later in the year. But a lot of students, I'm going to raffle this off. You guys can jot down your info on a little slip. Also, I will tell you guys, we're not recording tonight as a video, but what we're going to do is we're doing this virtual for 2 high schools later this month that could only do virtual. I'm going to record those. I'll take the better one. I'll email it to all of you guys. So that little slip will tell me who I should send that video to. So you can jot down your info. Please write legibly. But one of you will win the college visit tracker because I see students who go to colleges to visit. They get a plane ticket, they get a hotel room, they get a rental car, and they come back and I say, "What'd you think?" And they say, "It was pretty." That's not going to cut it. And especially right now, those of you with seniors, you may think the college visits are over. They are not over. First of all, if you've not been accepted yet, you've been deferred, you've been waitlisted, you're still waiting to hear, go for a visit. Second of all, if you're trying to decide between schools that have accepted you, which one do I commit to? Go for a visit if you can, maybe a virtual visit, but this is a fun little book that'll help you track a lot of information about those schools. I got categories for everything. You can rate all different kinds of things, and I'll give it away to you. And while you guys are filling that stuff out and putting it in a fishbowl, let's turn it over to questions. I talked a lot. I went over my time, but what would you guys like to know? You wrote down maybe some questions along the way. Ask me stuff. Let's have a conversation. Yes. So the question is, if we have applied early decision, applying early decision is a binding commitment. The only way out of an early decision commitment is if you cannot afford it. And if they've seen your FAFSA, they know if you can or cannot afford it. And if you say, look, guys, I did this thinking I was going to get some money and I didn't, and I can't afford it, you can potentially get them to release you. They're less likely to give you award money because you made a commitment to them and you're breaking it, and they're not going to do a whole lot for you right now, but you can try. So you may not be able to successfully negotiate with admissions or financial aid if you're early decision, but you can still do all those other things like making smart choices about borrowing, making smart choices about textbooks, and being an RA, and doing work study, and graduating earlier, and giving the student the responsibility for the fund. And these are things that you can do. The important thing to know about some of these steps in negotiating is that, again, I said it before, you're going to get more no's than yeses, but you ask, what's the worst they can do? Say no. Admissions at this point won't give you anything because you've already committed to them. Financial aid, there's a small chance. I would call it a less than 10% chance, but a non-zero chance. Who else has a question? Here and then here. Yes?
So in your experience, do the SUNY schools, the State University of New York schools, do they sort of actively compete with one another when it comes to like merit money?
It's an excellent question. First of all, 23 SUNY schools will give you the in-state Rutgers price. They're offering the flagship university for New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, and I think one other for in-state rates. So they're trying to poach from some of their neighbors, so they will compete for that. Beyond that, we do want to talk about apples to apples, like would SUNY New Paltz compete with SUNY Plattsburgh, can compete with, SUNY Oneonta or something. You could try, let's find out. Tell me what works, and from one year to the next, it may work, it may not. I've had students have great success at one college one year, and the next year that college did not have the money, and students who did the same thing, asked the same questions, got more no's. And it could be, well, we've already filled the spots. It could be, we've already filled spots for students like you. I heard an admissions officer from Pomona say that they competed for a student because she played the bassoon, and their bassoonist in the orchestra was graduating. and they had to get a new bassoonist. So that was a priority for them. And so you never know what it is that they're exactly looking for and why they may or may not be willing to compete for you, but you can ask and you can definitely try. Question back here, yes?
So I think you had said that, how do you know whether or not your school's admission, like similar to Claire's question regarding like weighting, because we're waiting for the top choice.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know whether or not the admissions office is connected to the financial aid office?
So
Do we wait? Because I was like, as soon as you get it, get it. Get it in before they can get all these other students.
they
I'm hearing you saying no pause.
definitely wait once you get your offer. Let's talk about both parts of that. First of all, like I said, the offer is good until May 1st. So it's not like the first this many kids in the door get the spot and after that nobody can get in. If they overyield, that's their problem to figure out where to house and how to educate these people. And they may wind up saying, like Virginia Tech did, if you're not a math major, all freshman math classes are going to be virtual. That's what they did to accommodate more students, to kind of alleviate the pressure. But you do have until May 1st. You do not have to rush to get your seat fast. It's not going to go away. But then the other part of your question, I had it and I lost it. Remind me, what was the other half of the question? It was the first half of the question?
Yeah, so how do you know whether or not
How do you know if they're need blind?
some talk to each other?
Yes.
How do you know whether or not that aid letter is coming up?
Okay, so you would definitely get an award letter. If you filled out the FAFSA, you're definitely going to get a letter. And the reason is everybody gets offered the $5,500 in loan, and that's got to come in a letter. And that will come with anything else. So you are going to get an award letter. You can call the college and say, hi, I just wanted to follow up. We received the acceptance letter, and we're looking at numbers, trying to make decisions. When can we expect the award letter? And they'll tell you, oh, that's going to be this day. That's going to be like in 3 weeks. We're working on it. Sometimes they're late, but you can definitely ask. How do you find out if they're need blind? You can Google the name of the school and the term need blind, and you can find it on their website. Don't trust any third-party websites, only trust the college website. You can also call the college and say, hi, are you need blind? Don't give them your name. Call financial aid for that. Don't call admissions. And if they say, yes, we are need blind, okay, they're need blind. And if they hem and haw in the slightest, then they're not need blind, they're need aware. There's a number of factors to be considered in determining a student's eligibility. It's a holistic read. They might say they're not need blind, they're need aware. Other questions? Yes?
You mentioned that once you, so suppose you get a default, and you said you can call the college to if they would accept a letter of continued interest. Some of the colleges I've seen that they already say that, hey, we have been deferred, but we'll consider either for ED2 or for regular admission. So that's already, I believe, is called what's called continued interest, right? Or is there something other than that?
So yeah, you can send them a letter of continued interest if they will accept it. And a letter is you catching them up on what you've accomplished since your application went in, telling them, I now have these better grades, I now have these better scores, I'm now the president of NHS, I've now completed this capstone project. Tell them whatever great things you've accomplished, and also within that, tell them that this, you're grateful for the opportunity that they're still considering you, that you are looking forward to good news soon, and that you are holding off on accepting offers from any other college until receiving their final decision. That lets them know you're committed to them, and that may increase your chance of being accepted, and if you're waitlisted, can bring you higher on the wait list, which is important because that's ranked.
So even if the college says we're not going to consider anything beyond this for regular, it's still okay to call them and then try this?
If the college specifically says we do not accept letters of continued interest, then they gave you the answer in writing, don't bother them. Be a person who can read and follow instructions, and not a person who calls and says, but can I anyway? But if they don't say they don't, you can call and ask if they will. Yes? Can you ask what?
Price match colleges for example, McGill or colleges in Europe?
You can ask if they'll price match colleges from other countries, but that goes back to the apples to apples. And colleges outside of the country run on a very different system than the colleges inside the country. So I have some students who are dual citizens, and so they qualify for the local rate for a Canadian school, for a German school. I got one student, and that's very different. And so that's really apples and oranges when you're asking like a local school. But look at how it works. If it's set up very similarly, maybe. But generally it's apples to apples. You can't hurt to ask. What do you have to lose? You ask, they say no, you move on. Yes?
Would you mind just saying again the things that need to be on that spreadsheet, the columns?
Sure. Let's go over real fast. You want to put in the COA. That's the official federally recognized cost of attendance. Make sure it's all for the same year. You want to put in the gift aid. That's the free money you do not have to pay back. Exclude the Pell Grant and the tag because that's portable from school to school. You want to put in the real cost, which is the difference between the first two columns we just talked about. You want to put in the yield, which gives you an idea of how in demand the school is. You want to put in the retention rate, which gives you an idea of how happy the students are and if they're given the tools to succeed. You want to put in the 4-year and maybe the 6-year graduation rate. Yeah, those are the things I would put there. If there's other things that are important to you, like some students are like, would I have a spot in the marching band? Then make a column for that. For other students, it's like, would I be able to do research? Or whatever's important to you, put a column, by all means. But those are the things I go to. I'm a real numbers guy. I like those things. Any other questions? Yes, one more, and then we'll...
So I remember this was first part about work study. If somebody's to, serve food in the cafeteria, how does that differ from whether or not they do it on the work study program versus whether or not they just do it for the school? Or an RA, maybe not RA, it's not a good example, but like working in a lab or something like that.
So a question is, what is the difference to the student whether they're getting federal work study versus non-federal work study, which is to say a job they can work at the college that is paid for by the college instead of federal dollars? Generally not much. Generally they're going to be working side by side with students who are on different stuff. For federal work study, you're guaranteed a certain number of dollars. That money can run out. And if the department does not have more money to give you for other things, then you only get that much money. But the jobs themselves really come down to which department needs the help and has the budget. Sure. So how does somebody with EBT buy their groceries? The same way the rest of us do, just with this card instead of that card. So whether the money is coming from the government or the money is coming from a different pocket, the way to get it is the same, which is you have to apply for these jobs. And they'll say, like, do you have work study? And you're like, yes, I have this much in work study. And they'll say, oh, well, that's free money for us, so come on over here because we can get your labor for free. As opposed to other departments that might say, yeah, work study kids aren't coming over here, but we got work that needs doing, we got a budget, we'll pay you, come on. Here's a job. So, you got to go ask, you got to go apply. That's what it comes down to, and they're going to prioritize the work study kids because they have to give those kids jobs, and if they still have work left over and they still have budget left over, then they might hire other kids, they might not, depending on the department. Yes?
I just noticed you were doing a practice SAT and ACT later this month. Could you say a few words about how that works?
Sure. I assume you meant you were looking at my calendar at solutionprep.com, which is a combination of a calendar of what's going on with Solution Prep, including I put up when I'm speaking at nights like tonight, so people know those kinds of things. I also, for my students, I run practice SATs and practice ACTs because I run an SAT and ACT program where we have 6 instructors and 4 centers, and our programs include unlimited practice tests. Those are not something that like anybody who we've never met before can just come take a test with us. Unfortunately, that's a feature of our programs. So it's not like, hey, who wants a practice test? I'm sorry, I don't do that. Oh, there's a different practice test coming up then for Princeton High School that I'm sure that guidance will be happy to tell you about that has nothing to do with Solution Prep. Sure. My name is Eric Ginsberg. I'm a master tutor at Solution Prep. We do things like SAT and ACT prep and college admissions coaching. And we are very grateful for the opportunity to come and speak with you guys by invitation of Ms. Shah here, who invites us. And I'd love to give you guys great information, help you out. But the school also, I assume, has met other nice people who can also help you in other ways. So I'm not involved in everything here at the school, but I'm happy to get involved in more. Any other questions? Yeah, boom, boom, and then we got to call it. Yes?
Back to work study, I don't know if
It's a very good question. So are you talking about an American college or a non-American college? Sure. So an American college, you have to fill out the FAFSA to get a federal work-study job. And you have to be a U.S. citizen or green card holder to fill out the FAFSA. That said, as we discussed, there are non-federal work-study jobs that if the department has a need and has a budget, they don't care where you're from, they'll hire you. So like I was down at SCAD in March, and I was walking through this museum that's on the SCAD campus, this art museum, and every room is staffed by somebody else from a different country. And they're all working, and it's all work-study jobs. It's just not federal work-study. It's the museum is paying them. The college is paying them out of their own money. So yes, you can still get those non-federal work-study jobs without having filled out the FAFSA. Potentially. And one more question over here, and then I'm giving away free stuff and saying goodnight.
Real quick, the grants that the students don't have to pay back, all being one,
All grants are free money, gift aid, you don't have to be paid back. The definition of grant, free money.
and it's, where's the Stafford?
Stafford loan is a loan, you got to pay it back. That's correct. Anything with the word loan is a loan. Anything with the words grant or scholarship is gift aid. Light dimming, how interesting. Guys, I'm going to pull out a name for my book. One winner per household per year. So if you won something last time, be honest. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. This copy is going to go home with, let's see, Seema. Seema? Seema, look at that. There you go. Save me the walk. Guys, thank you so much. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to come chat with me. Otherwise, I'll send you a video sometime by the end of the month. You can watch stuff again, maybe watch it with your kids. And thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you. Bye, guys.